Well, it was meant to be the first step towards First Nations financial accountability, but instead it turned into a screaming match.
Who's responsible for our oppression? Our youth without running water? Our chiefs?
I'm not surprised. This is what happens when we try to speak at our own bad meetings, encouraged by our leaders.
No More protesters hijacked a news conference in Winnipeg yesterday. That's where Aboriginal Affairs Bernard Valcourt was announcing the passage of the Transparency Act. The law would require First Nations to publish audited financial statements and the salaries of chiefs. Our Nicole Dube was at the press conference, and she joins us now live in Winnipeg with the details. Nicole, what exactly happened during the announcement of Bill C-27?
Well, yes, we just saw earlier there, Alex, Phyllis Sutherland. She's from the Peguis First Nation, a band member there who has been long calling for more transparency on her community and in First Nation communities across this country. Well, when she took to the podium following the announcement that Bill C-27 will be passed into law, she went to the podium obviously to speak to its benefits, and that's when she was very much so interrupted by an Idle No More protester and other supporters of that gentleman. In fact, the drumming got to the point where it was so loud that Phyllis, along with Minister Valcourt and the other delegates, had to actually leave that press conference because clearly they weren't making any progress and the interruption wasn't coming to an end. That's when things actually turned really ugly. It was into the hallway when they started going into there that really things turned rough, and here's what happened.
How do you sleep at night knowing that our kids are not running water, Minister? Huh? Who do you blame it on? The Chinese? It's you Canadians! Oppressors! Oppressors!
So it was at that point that a media scrum then ended up happening in the hallway with some of the protesters, one of those being a woman by the name of Pam Palmeter. She is a First Nation activist. She's also someone who ran unsuccessfully for the Assembly of First Nations. She got actually into a heated exchange with Colin Craig with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Palmeter says the reason that they were disrupting the press conference is because, in their view, Bill C-27 is part of a smear campaign against First Nations. Here's how that went down.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
You know, we have to stand up to this baloney. We're not taking it.
Smearing First Nations. This is all about them saying, look what you have and what we don't have.
Now, that was just a very small excerpt of that exchange between Pam Palmeter and Colin Craig. Eventually, things did cool down. The group of protesters did disperse, but unfortunately, Phyllis Sutherland, who was rudely interrupted, never did return to speak with media. It was just too much of a hostile environment, Alex.
Quite the commotion indeed. Now, what has Minister Valcourt said today about the issue? Have we heard anything?
Yes, he did speak today in the House of Commons today about this issue. He defends Bill C-27 and the way it's being introduced. And he says that what happened yesterday is a very clear example of why Bill C-27 is needed.
The NDP continues to support the position and the likes of the protesters who yesterday in Winnipeg shut down a First Nation mother who was very simply asking to have the same rights and enjoy the rights that every other non-Aboriginal has in Canada, and that is accountability and transparency in the spending of tax dollars by its government.
And Minister Valcourt touched on the fact that the Conservatives really aren't impressed with the NDP siding with some of these Idle No More protesters. The issue of transparency is one that First Nations members from across this country have been calling for. Those grassroots band members need that support so they don't feel intimidated by their council in chief when they do ask for financial transparency. So hopefully this bill will alleviate any more of those hostile situations.
All right. Thank you very much, Nicole.
You're welcome.